youths united against corruption, changing the world and the way we function. The youths united against corruption, changing the world and the way we function. You remember the youth, them are with future leaders, policy creators, decision makers. As if them are not just the cornerstone, but a crucial part to a better tomorrow. United against corruption, changing the world and the way we function. The youths united against corruption.
A message from the Integrity Commission.
Try and see if we can patch up those injuries and get these players fit for the second leg.
One people, one purpose. Here we sing, Jamaica always win.
Jamaica, Monday, May 25 is Labor Day. The focus this year is the restoration of sports, early childhood, and community facilities. Make sure to volunteer, cause we are one people.
One people, one purpose. In all things, Jamaica always wins. Yes, we always win. Always win.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaica is changing right before our very eyes. Across the island, billions are being invested into our road networks, from farm and community roads to major roads and highways. Dozens of communities across the length and breadth of Jamaica are receiving access to reliable potable water for the very first time. And thousands of Jamaicans have become homeowners thanks to the historic shifts in policies of the National Housing Trust, making it easier for Jamaicans to receive funding. Not to mention the record number of houses being built. Never dreamed you would own a home? No matter your circumstance, home ownership is possible for you, thanks to the government's new social housing program specially designed to meet the needs of poor Jamaicans at no cost to them. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
What is the role of a backbencher in government? I'm glad you asked. They're members of Parliament who are not appointed to cabinet. So they sit in the back of the legislature and they apply pressure. They examine what government legislates, participate in Parliament debates, raise issues and advocate and question chamber when things don't look straight. Backbenchers represent the constituents in Parliament. Backbenchers oversee the interests of citizens, you and me. But how can they be agents of government accountability after them no hold a portfolio? And them and a minister? No. So then how can they facilitate government transparency? And the next thing, them and a front bencher. So how them affect me? You see, a lot of work is in committees. So these portfolio-free MPs with less dire responsibilities are more accessible to you and me. So they help with policy, but it helps if we engage them, you see. So they're not just in the back benches, but on the ground, in the trenches. Though in the back of Parliament, we're at the front of their cause. So pause. Find your backbencher at jampja.org.
Send the something and come back. Back to sender. God, I thank you so much.
Miracles await and miracles abound. Tune in every Sunday at 7 a.m. for your share of the Miracle Revival Hour with Reverend Dr. Blair. Come for the word, stay for the worship, right here on PBCJ.
Miracle worker, work one for me.
Are you an entrepreneur producing an excellent Jamaican product or service? Did you know you can earn hard currency and more significant returns by exporting? Contact the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to help propel your business along the export lane.
Everything you can produce, the Jamaicans overseas want it. We're not going to get rich by just bringing down the debt. We're going to get rich by exporting a lot more. So grow exports, create job opportunities, drive economic growth through exports to make Jamaica a richer and much more prosperous country.
One people, one purpose. Here we sing, Jamaica always win.
Jamaica, Monday, May 25 is Labor Day. The focus this year is the restoration of sports, early childhood, and community facilities. Make sure to volunteer, cause we are one people.
One people, one purpose. In all things, Jamaica always wins. Yes, we always win. Always win. Jesus, make me smile again.
It will be another evening of foot stomping, hand clapping, praise and worship inside Emancipation Park on Labor Day, May 25, starting at 7 p.m.
At the National Labor Day Gospel Concert.
Come see John Mark Wigan,
Prodigal Son,
Jabez,
Sebastian Braham,
Julian Minto,
Lubert Levy, and many, many more. Live gospel music at its most exciting in Emancipation Park, Labor Day, Monday, May 25, 7 p.m.
And it will be live right here on PBCJ, 7 p.m.
When the work done, come give thanks and praise.
It's free.
Oh Lord, you're the only one. That's why me only not so very long. Hey, hey, hey.
So who keeps our taxpayer money in check? Well, the PAC and PAAC help watch over the country's budget. And one might sound like it just have an extra A, but they're way different. Here's how. The PAAC and PAC are two committees that watch the money. The Public Accounts Committee reviews government projects after them close. They do a post-audit check to see what problems arose with the costs and call officials to explain decisions that cause budget mismanagement. And then they recommend corrective action. So the problem will happen from when, not happen again. But what about the money we are spending right now? The PAAC. That's how Public Administration and Appropriations Committee pretty much means your money will protect as it happen, we check. While projects go on, things are accurate. As government spend the nation's budget, PAAC reviews it. They examine proposals and summon officials to find problems before them don't use it. So the PAC and PAAC are two parliamentary committees that watch over the country's wallet to protect the budget and keep it in check. And you can get involved. Just visit jampja.org.
The following is brought to you by MOCA, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency with kind support of NIA and USAID.
Criminal minds think they are cunning. The major organized crime and anti-corruption agency have them running. Your friend a shout, come scam. Take time running, are we ready for the apps? Drive up on your block, step out now the block, cyber take about your laptop. Pull up every lock, no evidence to drop. We put it in a cuffs and now we have the underground. Sin you say scam, you better look out fit. When you move corrupt, better look out fit. Feel say you get wet, look out fit. Look out fit, look out fit. From you say scam, you better look out fit. When you move corrupt, better look out fit. Feel say you get wet, look out fit. Look out fit, look out fit.
The proceeding was brought to you by MOCA, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency with the kind support of NIA and USAID.
MOCA. Peace begins with us. Every act of kindness, every step towards understanding brings us closer to a brighter tomorrow. Let's choose unity, compassion, and hope. Together, we can build a future where peace reigns.
Brighter tomorrow starting today.
Labor Day is being officially observed on Monday, May 25, and all across Jamaica, people will be busy, busy, busy. So, what are you doing on Labor Day?
I'll be painting a school for the teachers and students in my community.
Building something meaningful.
Planting flowers, beautifying the environment.
Protecting what matters most in our community.
Whether it is big or small, PBCJ wants to hear about your Labor Day project. Send us a 3-minute video of your team hard at work on Labor Day, and we will share it on TV and on social media. Send the video by WhatsApp to 876-228-7225, that's 876-228-7225, or by email to communications@pbcjamaica.org, or tag PBCJ on social media.
This Labor Day is all about teamwork.
Labor Day 2026, together we build Jamaica.
Labor Day 2026. One people, one purpose. In all things, Jamaica wins.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Your government is empowering you through education, training, and development. That is why we have removed all fees for every Jamaican accessing training through the Heart NSTA Trust. So, whatever you desire training in, food and hospitality, beauty and cosmetology, housekeeping and hotel management, welding, carpentry, masonry, or any of the dozens of programs Heart offers, you can enroll completely free and change your life. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Each year, the Jamaican Parliament approves billions in tax dollars to buy goods and services for Jamaicans. Awarding contracts to private companies to provide public goods and services is called public procurement, and it is a major hotspot for corruption. Can citizens spot the red flags in public procurement and help the government protect our taxes? Yes, they can, and here are 6 to watch for. Direct contracting. When contracts are frequently awarded to one supplier without other companies competing to offer a better price and quality, we usually end up paying more and getting less. Contract splintering. Big projects need big money and higher level approvals. But if the contract is cut up into smaller ones, it won't need external approval from offices like the Public Procurement Commission or Cabinet. This makes it easier for contracts to avoid additional scrutiny. Timing of advertisements. Contracts advertised during distracting periods like the holidays can result in less competition and a really strong advantage for the favored company. Like Christmas time, work slows down and companies are less attentive to business opportunities. Emergency contracting. Claiming emergencies allows officials to legally bypass normal procurement rules, making it easier to award contracts to favored companies. Contract timing. Contracts awarded just before or after election can be payback for campaign support and not based on what Jamaicans really need. Collusion. And what if penalties are not enforced when work is poorly done? This could be a contractor and public official working together for private benefit. And if it is, this is collusion. These flags do not prove corruption, but they trigger questions that citizens must ask. So mind your business, Jamaica. Visit the JAMP Procurement Tracker to monitor government contracts. If you spot these flags, use our ATI tool to ask questions and demand accountability.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaica is changing right before our very eyes. Across the island, billions are being invested into our road networks, from farm and community roads to major roads and highways. Dozens of communities across the length and breadth of Jamaica are receiving access to reliable potable water for the very first time. And thousands of Jamaicans have become homeowners thanks to the historic shifts in policies of the National Housing Trust, making it easier for Jamaicans to receive funding. Not to mention the record number of houses being built. Never dreamed you would own a home? No matter your circumstance, home ownership is possible for you, thanks to the government's new social housing program specially designed to meet the needs of poor Jamaicans at no cost to them. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Jamaica, let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We on the road to republic. Well then, let's propel we nation, moving forward in a new direction. True independence, that's the projection. No more dependency, it's the best plan. Yes, we know what's best for us, cause we want we country prosperous. So make we just pull together as the general public while on the road to republic. Jamaica, let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We on the road to republic.
A message from the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
We on the road to republic.
BGLC, the regulatory body. We regulate, you play without worry. We regulate, you play. BGLC, fair play when you play. For the fun of the game, you know where they are. BGLC, keep it fair for the player. You play the game and we are the rules that keep everything fair. So the game play better. The better Anything Gaming and Lotteries Commission. We ensure fairness, integrity, and responsible gaming practices. Keep the game fair and fun for everyone. We regulate, you play.
Peace begins with us. Every act of kindness, every step towards understanding brings us closer to a brighter tomorrow. Let's choose unity, compassion, and hope. Together, we can build a future where peace reigns.
Brighter
tomorrow starting today.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
To fight crime and violence in your country, your government has invested over $9.7 billion into national security systems. This includes the construction and renovation of dozens of police stations, the acquisition of critical security equipment such as patrol vessels and police vehicles, the recruitment and training of more police officers, and the build-out of the Jamaica Defense Force. Your government is investing in your safety. We are building Jamaica.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
The following is brought to you by MOCA, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency with kind support of NIA and USAID.
Criminal minds think they are cunning. The major organized crime and anti-corruption agency have them running. Your friend a shout, come scam. Take time running, now we ready for the ops. Drive up on your block, step out now me block. Cyber take about your laptop. Pull up every lock, no evidence to drop. We put it in a cuffs and now we have the underline. Sin you say scam, you better look out fit. When you move corrupt, better look out fit. Things say you get wet, look out fit. Look out fit, look out fit. From you say scam, you better look out fit. When you move corrupt, better look out fit. Things say you get wet, look out fit. Look out fit, look out fit.
The proceeding was brought to you by MOCA, the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency with the kind support of NIA and USAID.
MOCA! Send the something and come back. Back to sender! God, I thank you so much.
Miracles await and miracles abound. Tune in every Sunday at 7 a.m. for your share of the Miracle Revival Hour with Reverend Dr. Blair. Come for the word, stay for the worship, right here on PBCJ.
Miracle worker, work one for me.
Most Jamaicans will tell you corruption in politics is deep-rooted, and I just saw it set, and nothing can do about that. But actually, there is, and another 152 countries are doing it. It's called asset declaration, and it works best where citizens themselves understand it and help to ensure the law is enforced. Corruption happens when public officials abuse their power to benefit themselves, family, or associates. Jamaica's Integrity Commission Act was designed to prevent corruption, and here are 5 things you should know. 1. Under this law, every year MPs and senators must report what they earn, own, and owe, and if they don't, they'll be sanctioned. 2. Their report must include the same kind of information for their wife or husband and children. 3. If they get a gift worth more than $100,000 from anyone who's not family, they must declare it. 4. A summary of the declarations of our Prime Minister and opposition leader must be published where the public can read it. 5. Parliamentarians can now be prosecuted by the Integrity Commission. They can be fined up to $2 million or serve up to 2 years in prison if they don't file their declaration or if they give false information, and $500,000 for not filing on time or ignoring requests for information. Unfortunately, our parliamentarians made changes that prevent the public from knowing when they've broken the law or when they're being investigated. We really need to change that. Visit jampja.org to find out more about the act and to track if your MP is obeying this law. If they're not, JAMP's MP Tracker will help you write, tweet, or call.
Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us with all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Be seated, please. Number of matters before we begin the business of the day. Our members would have noticed that there is a mobile type air condition in the chamber. It is because the central air condition unit is malfunctioning, with the consequence that it may get a bit uncomfortable. You'll notice that I'm not wearing the traditional robe that I usually start the sessions with. If male members are of the view that they wish to remove their tops, that is to say the jacket, you may do so without seeking specific approval. It's not so bad now, but I suspect that it may get a bit warm during the process of our sitting. That's number one. Number two, we have a group of 28 students, 6 teachers, and 1 parent from the Grand Comizeno? Teacher, that's how you call it? C-O-M-I-E-N-Z-O, prep. That's right? Okay. The Grand Comenzio Prep, which is in Mandeville. So welcome to you all. So it's 28 students, 6 teachers, and 1 parent. Thank you very much for coming to spend the day with us today. And remember that you're always welcome here. It's your parliament, and it's great to see you. The only thing I would ask the teachers and the parents, or parent, when you are going back to Mandeville, please exercise the greatest of caution on the roads. Ensure that your driver is not speeding with the children. You have the future of the country in your hands. So please be very careful when you're going back to Mandeville, and you're always welcome to come and see us at any other time that you wish. Now, members, on Wednesday morning, I attended a function at National Heroes Park, which is the site of the internment of a mass grave of 157 women who died at the evening tide home in a fire on May 20th, 1980, in the period approaching the general election. The ceremony that I attended, and there were 2 senators there as well, president of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union was one. It was to mark the creation of a national day of remembrance for the victim, all female, of this fire, and to declare the day a national day of remembrance for the victims. and this was signed by the Governor General. I think it is a most important development, as so many of us Jamaicans do not have any recollection or knowledge of this most tragic event, a painful event, which is without doubt a scar on the national fabric, and its memory ought to be seared in the collective memory of this nation. Senator Brown, please. I'm trying to, look here now. I see comments in the paper. I avoid all politics in this matter. It is a most painful event which ought to be seared in the memory of Jamaica. That over 157 elderly women, many of whom were physically and mentally challenged, would meet their death in this most painful and atrocious manner is something that we as a nation need to reflect on. Many of the senators in here I know have no idea about this event. And you need to read about it, get an understanding about it, so that something like this can never ever happen in our history again. The fact that these poor and destitute women, many of whom had been abandoned by their families, could die in circumstances like this, where the state, and this is the painful thing to me, it is the state who was responsible for them. The state take 150 people who are destitute, put them in an institution, and all of them are going to die. I listened to the firemen up there at the event, recollecting the incident and talking about how the incident took place. And they are saying, and perhaps mercifully, the 2 wards, which were the Myers wards that these women lived in, was destroyed within 5 minutes of the breakout of the fire. So I ask our colleagues, don't pay attention to the comment that was made earlier. Look into the matter and determine that we as a country, they talk about, spoke about the amount of people who died in what is referred to as the Tivoli incursion. This is 157 elderly, helpless women. Now, I take the opportunity, and I must tell you, it had a very deep impact on me. And I take this opportunity to thank the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development for ensuring that we have the capacity to remember this event. It's a very nice, the last time I went there was just a slab. I notice now that the interment, the grave, the site of this mass grave has been marked very nicely. So there's a nice forecourt and so on. And I wish to thank, in particular, the Minister Desmond McKenzie, who has, over the years, now ensured that there is a shrine in the National Heroes Park, and it has been maintained beautifully. The Governor General has now signed an official day of remembrance. So I ask you, if you have the opportunity to pass by, do so. If you don't know anything about this tragic event, read about it. And I tell you something that really got to me as well. I asked the minister, why is it that the names of the 157 persons are not put on the monument up there? And his response to me that after all of these years, from 1980 till now, they are still in the process of trying to identify the names of some of these persons, because the record of persons who were in those dorms was the Myers residence was destroyed in that fire. So let us contemplate it. and ensure that we remember it and ensure that nothing like this happens again in this Jamaica land we love. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, boy. Statements by ministers. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the Senate are the following. Annual report of the Financial Services Commission for the financial year 2022-2023 and its related ministry paper numbered 30 of 2026 titled Annual Report of the Financial Services Commission for the year ended March 31, 2023. Annual report and audited financial statement of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica for the financial year 2024-2025. Auditor General's Department Hurricane Melissa Relief Initiative Audit, Compliance Audit Report, Financial Management of Donated and National Disaster Funds, and implementation of the Roof Restoration Project. Retabling of the Auditor General's Department Performance Audit Report, Management of the Production Incentive Program by RADA. Green Paper, numbered 1 of 2026, titled National Youth in Agriculture Policy. Annual Report of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security for the financial year 2024-2025. Integrity Commission Investigation Report into concerns that Mr. Carl Walker, a clerk of works formerly employed to the National Housing Trust, failed to file his statutory declaration with the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to law and its indicative ruling. Integrity Commission's Investigation Report into concerns that Miss Karine Green, a loans officer employed to the National Housing Trust, failed to file her statutory declaration with the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to law and its indicative ruling. Integrity Commission Investigation Report into concerns that Miss Corinne Henry, a loans officer employed to the National Housing Trust, failed to file her statutory declaration with the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to law and its indicative ruling. Integrity Commission's Investigation Report into concerns that Mr. Cassie Ford, a programmer analyst employed to the Information and Communication Technology Authority, failed to file a statutory declaration with the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to law and its indicative ruling. Integrity Commission Investigation Report into concerns that the following officers employed to the Firearm Licensing Authority failed to file their statutory declaration for the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to law, and their indicative ruling concerning Mr. Donnie Robinson, a public procurement officer, Mr. Clive Brown, an investigator, Mr. Dale Walker, an investigator, and Ms. Dawn Dickinson, Director, Corporate Planning and Client Relations.
Yes, Senator Brown.
These announcements about clerks and others.
Because of the air conditioned units, you have to speak particularly loud from here. Yeah, but you turn off that now, so roast, we're planning for roast, you know.
No.
Just speak clearly for the Senator Brown.
I hope you're hearing me now.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
But I'm saying, on the announcement, there are some reports from the Integrity Commission. Are there any other reports that have been presented to the Parliament that have not been shared with us as Senator as soon as practicable? And if there's any such report, could the Senators be told whether or not there's any court action enjoining the Parliament from tabling such a report? May it please you.
The question that Senator Brown asks is one that I can address and had not really intended to do so, but since it is raised by Senator Brown, I have no alternative but to deal with it. And the question is, essentially, whether there is any other report from the Integrity Commission which has been sent to this Parliament but has not been tabled. Indeed, there is such a report which was received from the Integrity Commission on the 30th of March 2026 concerning the conduct of the Firearm License Authority. Over the last several days, there has been wide and varied comment within the chamber of the lower house and in the public domain concerning the non-tabling by the Parliament of the said report which I referred to from the Integrity Commission of Jamaica. Much of the discussion has been criticism directed at the Speaker of the House, who has been unfairly accused of attempting to thwart and stifle our democracy and its institutions by her failure to table the report. She has been incorrectly accused of breaching provisions of the Integrity Commission Act 2017. It is not my intention to delve into the details of the legislation. However, it is to be noted that the legislation, that is to say the Integrity Commission Act, does not impose an obligation on the presiding officers to table reports received within any specific time, or indeed at all, but rather states that the Commission is to submit reports to the Parliament for tabling. The decision to table or not, and when to table, rests with the presiding officers of the Parliament. I wish to make it clear, I wish to make it abundantly clear that the decision not to table this specific report was not taken by the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Juliet Holness, in isolation. That decision was taken by the presiding officers. That is to say, myself as President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, in consultation with the clerk and the legal officers of the Parliament. Persons who are well aware of this, however, have sought to ascribe the decision as not to table the report solely to the Speaker of the House, in yet another attempt to besmirch her authority and tarnish her reputation. I am not surprised by these attacks, however, as there is a long history of attacking strong women in leadership in this country by many sections of our society. In arriving at our position, that is to say, not to table the report from the FLA at this time, we consider the decision in the Hales matter, which made it clear that proceedings in the Parliament are within the sole purview of the presiding officers of the Parliament, not the Speaker or the President, the presiding officers of the Parliament. The decision cited as the Supreme Court of Judicature of Jamaica, claim number 2017 HCV 00744, between Ian Hales, applicant, and Charlotte Alexander Hales, respondent, the Contractor General, interested parties, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, first interested party, and Senator Tom Tavares Finson, second interested party. And the judgment, which runs over just about 40 pages, says, and I want to just quote paragraph 60 at page 33, the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate would have been acted inter vires by tabling the report submitted to it by the OCG. their action would be categorized as Parliament conducting their internal affairs, and as such, their actions, listen to this, their actions would be immune from the jurisdiction of the court. I find that the Speaker of the House and President of the Senate were improperly joined to the application for leave to the interested parties. The bottom line, and for those who wish a simple explanation of all of this, is that the internal proceedings of the Parliament are directed and conducted not by the Speaker, not by the President, but by the presiding officers, both the President and the Speaker, both of whom took the decision in this matter after consultation with the relevant authorities of the Parliament. There is currently a matter before the court seeking non-disclosure of the report, and the view was taken that those proceedings should move ahead until it became clear where the court was heading in this matter. And we determined that the document ought not to be tabled until the issue in the court was further ventilated. Let me point out that this approach is nothing new, as it is a process that was followed in the Ian Hales matter, and which was supported by the then leader of the opposition, Mr. Peter Phillips. In fact, the approach that we have now adopted has received the approval of the most senior constitutional lawyer in this country, Dr. Lloyd Barnett, who says, if there is an application for non-disclosure in the courts, then you wouldn't frustrate the court's proceeding by tabling the legislation, by tabling the report. We have to have respect for the judicial system. In fairness, let me just read the precise words. If there is an application for non-disclosure, then you wouldn't frustrate the court's proceedings. We have to respect the judicial system. In closing, late last evening, I received a letter in my capacity as President of the Senate, addressed to myself and the Speaker of the House, both presiding officers, and addressed to the clerk from the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Mark Golding. In that letter, Mr. Golding said, and I must say, I had no intention of reading this letter, except to say that this morning, the correspondence appears in the Gleaner, on the Gleaner website. So several hours after it was sent to us, it is in the newspaper. Dear Madam Speaker and President, I'm sending you a memorandum of today's date, prepared by the Honorable B. St. Michael Hilton, KC, on the captioned matter. Please see attached. The captioned matter being subject, failure to table the Integrity Commission investigative report on the Firearm Licensing Authority sent to the Parliament on March 30, 2026. Now, so he says that he's sending this report to us, a memorandum prepared by learned King's Counsel, Mr. Michael Hilton. And then he says, having now shared with you the benefit of this clarification of the legal position of eminent senior counsel, I trust that the Integrity Commission's investigative report of the FLA will be tabled at the next sitting of the House of Representatives and Senate, respectively. If not, if not, I am putting the capital on it. If not, I intend to instruct legal counsel to file proceedings as advised in the memorandum. Well, no doubt the memorandum has already been released to the public. I consider this an unprecedented threat to the administration of Parliament and the conduct which I believe is beneath the dignity of the office of the Leader of the Opposition. Without saying too much, listen, without saying too much, I would just indicate that the presiding officers, the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, and myself as President of the Senate will not bow to any intimidation or threat. But will administer the affairs of the Parliament in accordance with established protocols, the standing orders, and the Constitution of Jamaica, which is the supreme law of the land. I'm still speaking. I thank Senator Lambert Brown for raising the matter and giving me the opportunity to offer the relevant clarification. This is not open to any debate.
Yeah. Thank you for reading from your prepared text. But I just want you to answer the question. Has the courts enjoined the Parliament from tabling the report? That's what I'm asking. Is there any measures taken by the court, an injunction blocking the Parliament?
Okay, I understand. What the courts have said in the Ian Hales matter is that the administration of the Parliament rests solely with the presiding officers of the Parliament. That is to say, the Speaker and the President of the Senate. The courts have said nothing in relation to the exercise of the prerogative of the presiding officers of Parliament. They have said nothing. The presiding officers of the Parliament, the Speaker and myself, have taken a decision based on our assessment as to what is happening in the court, and we have made that decision, which, let me point out, that decision is subject to continuous review. It is not in relation to Ian Hales. I think that position remained for almost 6 years. This position that we have taken is one that is going to be continuously reviewed. We accept the position of learned attorney, Mr. Lloyd Barnett, over the analysis of anybody else at this time. Announcements, you done that. Bills brought from the Honorable House of Representatives.
The following is a message from the Speaker of the House of Representatives to the Honorable Senate. I have the honor to advise the Honorable Senate that on the 12th day of May, 2026, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Conch Export Levy Act was passed in the House of Representatives without amendment. I further wish to advise this Honorable Senate that on the 19th day of May 2026, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the National Housing Trust Act was passed in the House of Representatives without amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Petitions? I'm sorry. Recognize you from a seat other than your own.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And Mr. President, I signify my willingness to take charge of both bills.
A bill shortly entitled the Conch Export Levy Amendment Act 2026 read a first time, and a bill shortly entitled the National Housing Trust Amendment Special Provisions Act 2026 also read a first time.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice of the second reading of the bills. I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take a second reading of a bill shortly entitled the Conch Export Levy Amendment Act 2026 and to take it through all its concluding stages.
Thank you, Minister. Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions. Minister?
Notices?
You're on, you're on.
Notices. That notices this. Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next reading of the Senate, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that the Insurance Amendment Act of 20th Schedule, Regulations 2026, which was held on the table of the House on the 27th day of March 2026, be referred to the Regulations Committee of the Senate for consideration and report. And, Mr. President, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Thank you, Minister. Questions and answers to questions? Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to the sitting of the Senate. Motions for leave to introduce bills. The presentation of bills without the leave of the Senate first obtained. Public business. Minister.
Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take a second reading of a bill shortly entitled the Conch Export Level Amendment Act 2026 and to take it through all its concluding stages.
Thank you. Members would have heard. Those in favor? Aye. Continue, Minister, please.
Here we are. The bill that is tabled before this Honourable Senate is entitled the Conch Export Levy Amendment Act 2026. Okay, we are on, I think. Let me repeat that for the record. The bill that is tabled before this Honourable Senate is entitled the Conch Export Levy Amendment Act 2026. This Senate is being reminded of the mischief or the problem to be remedied, which led to the enactment of the Conch Export Levy Act in 2009. It was needed to fund the sustainable management, monitoring, and enforcement of regulations regarding the country's limited conch resources, which have been threatened by illegal fishing and high demand for conch. The Conch Export Levy Act imposes a levy on exported conch to finance these efforts through the established fund called the Fisheries Management and Development Fund. Under the Act, an exporter of conch is required to pay to the Veterinary Services Division a levy which is calculated at the rate prescribed by the Minister for any specified conch season. In this regard, Section 3, subsection 2 of the Act currently provides that an exporter shall pay the levy on each occasion that he applies for an export health certificate and export license for a consignment of conch. Many practitioners in the business found this to be somewhat onerous and difficult. This rate of levy is set by the Minister by way of an order subject to affirmative resolution in the House of Representatives pursuant to Section 3(1), subsection C, Roman numeral number 2. You will recall that the Conch Export Levy Rate of Levy Order 2026 that was made on March 12, 2026 was affirmed in the House of Representatives on March 24, 2026. This bill, Mr. President, the Conch Export Levy Amendment Act 2026, has its genesis in a decision of the Cabinet number 10/24 dated April 8, 2024, granting approval for the amendment of the Conch Export Levy Act, followed by a subsequent Cabinet decision number 14/26 dated March 23, 2026, granting approval for its tabling. The bill, when enacted, will seek to, 1, empower the minister by order, subject to affirmative resolution of the House of Representatives, to prescribe the period during which an exporter may pay the levy on Conch and extend that period, and the manner in which the levy on Conch shall be paid, whether in full or in installments. 2, empower the minister to waive, reduce, or remit the levy on Conch under specific circumstances. And 3, amend the constitution of the Board of Management of the fund established under Section 10 of the Act. Mr. President, among the amendments reflected in the bill is the fact that the minister will have a discretion to make an order subject to affirmative resolution in the House of Representatives to extend the specific period for the payment of the levy on Conch payable by an exporter up to only a maximum period of 12 months. Following, notice you have a longer period there than every time you have to go, following the granting of an export health certificate, an export license for consignment of Conch. The rationale for this amendment, Mr. President, is that the event of a disruption in the fishing season, for instance, severe weather conditions and/or other external trade factors, this enlarged period would provide adequate time for an exporter of Conch to make the relevant payment of the levy to the Veterinary Services Division. In this regard, Mr. President, the Minister will have a discretion to stipulate whether the levy is to be paid in full or by installments. Further, Mr. President, the Minister will also have a discretion to waive, reduce, or remit the levy payable upon the application of an export health certificate, an export license where he is satisfied that such waiver, reduction, or remission is justifiable based upon the recommendations from the National Fisheries Authority and the Board of the Fisheries Management and Development Fund after an evaluation of the conditions relating to trade, economic viability, and sustainability of the fisheries sector. So, Mr. President, it is to be noted that with the amendment to the composition of the board, this is expected to eliminate any possible or perceived conflict of interests. In the circumstances, Mr. President, given the matters highlighted above, I ask the Honourable Senate for its full support in passing the bill entitled the Conch Export Levy Amendment Act 2026, which will remove a certain amount of hassle from the way the people who practice the business must get their license and pay their fees and in fact, interrupt the affairs of the ministry. So I fully ask the Senate to give their full support of the passing of this bill. Mr. President, if it pleases you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Scott Motley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I regret that the students have gone so that I don't have a chance to welcome them. It always delights me when I see young people in the Parliament. No, I don't know. This bill is not a controversial one. The opposition supports it. I personally had preferred the schedule, the composition of the board, the one that you have changed, because I thought it gave a level of flexibility that you could bring on other persons outside of the rigidity of persons who are knowledgeable in fisheries, as it were. Because even the lawyer has to be somebody who works with the fisheries. And sometimes it is good to get expertise outside because it brings, as Senator Anderson said, a different perspective. You know, when you're too deeply involved in something, you actually become a part of an echo chamber, so you don't have a fresh different perspective, which can in fact strengthen the organization. And I prefer the original composition. Minister, I would also have liked to have heard a little bit about the National Fisheries Management and Development Fund, because I view it has been very important, although I don't get a sense of that it is in fact carrying out its mandate. When we hear the complaints of overfishing, when we see that in spite of the fact that parrotfish is not supposed to be served because it serves a particular function, I would have liked to have seen some kind of report on how that is progressing, because remember, all the levy goes into the fund. And it's interesting that the levy goes into a particular fund, because sometimes the concerns which we have is that it just goes into the regular consolidated fund and not applied for a specific purpose. But I acknowledge that the conch industry is very important to Jamaica. It brings in a significant amount of foreign exchange, and it employs a considerable amount of persons at different levels. I am concerned about the unregulated fishing and the unregulated poaching of conch, because I remember some time ago that when, I think it was Minister Audley Shaw who was then the minister, and when he spoke about the staggering amount which we lost as a country to the illegal conch business, I was totally appalled. So let me say that the opposition supports this approach, which has been taken. We know that for some time now, there has been some challenges within the industry. I want to thank the technical team who has taken the time to come here, signifying how important it is to them that this legislation is passed. And as I said earlier, we give our support to this amendment. If it pleases you, Mr. President.
Minister?
Mr. President, I'd like to thank the member for such a very succinct presentation. And I know the technical people are telling me, I think, that the fund reports to Parliament. It does not. It reports to the ministry. So the ministry, indeed, I will convey your comments and your requests that the fund which is the repository for this money, you'd like to hear more about how it works. Sorry it's not here, and I'll convey that. I'll convey that. On the issue of the illegal fishing, one of the things that the Andrew Holness administration has done in the fight for, to bring down our crime rate is to bring in a great many more Coast Guard vessels that are very well armed. It has affected the policing of vessels that used to be in our waters and poaching away our fish. And so while we fight crime on the land, we also have Coast Guards and assistance to make sure we see that illegal fishing is reduced. No country really is going to get rid of illegal fishing, not even if you're whoever you are. But what we have to do is make sure we reduce the level, and that's a continuing work. And so, Mr. President, I ask for the, is that a second reading I'm looking for? Yep, may I ask for the second reading of the bill, Mr. President?
Thank you, Minister. The question is that the bill be read for a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Against?
A bill entitled...
Can't hear you.
He didn't mean you to hear, Mr.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Conch Export Levy Act read a second time.
Thank you. The Senate will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. Thank you very much. I take it that there is agreement in relation to this matter, so I put clauses 1 through to 4. Those in favor? Against? I put clause 5. Those in favor? Against? I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Against? The question is that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Those in favor? Thank you very much. I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Minister.
Mr. President, I now ask that the bill be read for a third time.
Members would have heard the question that the bill be read for a third time. Those in favor? Aye. Against?
A bill entitled An Act...
Madam, you have to talk up in a car. Remember, the air condition thing is giving me an issue over here.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Conch Export Levy Act read a third time and passed.
Thank you very much. Minister.
Yes, Mr. President. The bill that we're now about to consider, Mr. President, before this Honourable Senate is one titled the Jamaica Dairy Development Board Amendment Act 2026. This Honourable Senate is advised that the Jamaican Dairy Development Board, a body corporate, was established by the Jamaica Dairy Development Board Act of 2009, and the Act for the purpose of promoting and fostering the development of the dairy sector, with particular emphasis on promoting local milk production and achieving efficiencies in production, processing, marketing, and other trade in dairy products pursuant to Section 4 of the Act, Mr. President. The board functions include, Mr. President, the formulation of policies for the dairy sector and monitoring the growth of the sector, regulating the trade in dairy products, advising the Minister on matters of general policy relating to the dairy sector, and mobilizing resources for and on behalf of the dairy sector. The Honourable Senate should note that the dairy industry in Jamaica is an important sector contributing to the country's agricultural output. So, Mr. President, in seeking to grow the local dairy sector, the board commenced implementation of a $20 million equipment lease program during the 2024-2025 period. This initiative is designed to put modern technology directly into the hands of our local farmers to drive improvements in both milk and quality. However, Mr. President, equipment is only one aspect of the initiative. In order to foster a robust, competitive local industry, we must also ensure our regulatory framework that it is fair and effective. So the term milk, Mr. President, is defined in Section 2 of the Act as milk from cows. International trends have shown that milk is no longer confined to milk from cows or cattle. For example, in the United States of America and in Canada, there have been increased contribution to their dairy products by way of milk from goats and sheep, in other words, small ruminants.
But, Mr. Minister, that is not something that is restricted to America. People have been drinking goat milk in Jamaica and other larger beasts.
You are right, and that's why the definition is being
and
expanded.
You're a man from St. Elizabeth. You're
and
supposed to know that donkey milk
milk
drink more in St. Elizabeth
I have drank a lot of goat milk, and it's very good. What I'm saying to you is that...
No, I'm only taking issue with the fact that in the United States, people in America start to drink goat milk. No, we have been drinking it long time.
The definition, though, Mr. President, was limited. So we're expanding the definition to include ruminants. And so, Mr. President, domestically, since 2018, the board has been investing in the development of the local small ruminants sector, which has seen a consistent increase in local milk production and byproducts annually. Many people are now getting goat cheese, very good goat cheese made in Jamaica. And I hear it has less, whatever is not great for you. Under Section 18 of the Act, Mr. President, the board may, after consultation with persons involved in the dairy sector, impose a cess on trade in dairy products. The imposition of the cess requires the approval of the minister by way of an order, subject in such conditions, if any, as the minister thinks necessary. Dairy products, Mr. President, is defined in Section 2 of the Act as, and here it is, in relation to cows means milk, cream, butter, cheese, condensed milk, evaporated milk, milk powder, dry milk, ice cream, malted milk, and any other product manufactured wholly or mainly from milk, and includes products that have more than 50% milk solids on a dry weight basis, excluding sugar. So that's the 50% mark that we're looking at as one issue today, Mr. President. It is by virtue of Section 18 that the Jamaican Dairy Development Cess Order 2010, the order which is currently in force, was made and from which the board earns. Paragraph 3 of that order, Mr. President, imposes a cess on the importation into Jamaica of a specified dairy product and the trading in fresh milk products in Jamaica. Given the current definition of milk, a cess can only be imposed on milk products originating from cows, Mr. President. This creates a gap in the market, as a cess cannot be automatically be applied to other mammalian milk sources or their byproducts. Consequently, given the board's continued investment and regulatory remit, it has become necessary to expand the definition of milk to bring small ruminants under the umbrella of the Act with a view to regularizing the sector and to fully capturing this emerging market. Additionally, Mr. President, we are revising the percentage milk solid content for an item to be deemed a dairy product. As can be seen from the previously stated definition of dairy products, aside from the specifically stated products, this definition currently includes products that contain more than 50% milk solids. Mr. President, this percentage is being amended to 5%. The justification for this policy is first in keeping with international standards, as we note that in the US, Canada, and Barbados, the milk solid content of dairy products varies from products to product with different percentages. Specifically, Mr. President, for example, in Canada, ice creams and frozen desserts are required to contain a minimum of 8% milk solid to qualify as a dairy product. In Connecticut, in the United States, it is at least 8.25% milk solid content to qualify as a dairy product. Secondly, Mr. President, the 50% threshold, because we're independent Jamaica, as I remember you say all the time. Secondly, Mr. President, the 50% threshold modified after the EU regulations proved to be too high and has also created a loophole that allows a wide range of products containing significant amounts of imported milk products to bypass the cess entirely. To create a clear, consistent regulatory framework in Jamaica, Mr. President, we are establishing a 5% milk solid content threshold for cess purposes in relation to the trade of milk products and milk byproducts. This transition removes ambiguity in the market and provides a solid enforceable baseline that will better support the sustainable growth of our entire dairy sector. So the purpose and objects of the bill, Mr. President, are, inter alia, 1, replace the existing definition of milk to include milk from other animals, to wit, means the normal mammary secretion obtained from an animal, including a ruminant, without addition to or extraction from such secretion. 2, revise the existing definition of dairy products and dairy sector accordingly. 3, Mr. President, expand the list of milk-based products and which are set out in the proposed second schedule of the Act. And 4, Mr. President, specify the composition of the Jamaica Dairy Development Board to accord with the law for the nomination, selection, and appointment of boards of public bodies. Based on the foregoing, Mr. President, I ask this Honourable Senate for its full support in the passing of the bill entitled the Jamaica Dairy Development Board Amendment Act 2026, if it pleases you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Hill. Mr. 1 minute, please. Thank you very much, Minister Hill. Senator Bernard.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm just saying that I like Senator Hill. He's my friend.
I didn't hear that.
I would have said I like Senator Hill, and he's my friend. Yes, he's my friend. He's my friend.
That in itself is odd, but go on.
I rise today to contribute to the debate on the amendment to the Jamaica Dairy Development Board Act 2026. At first glance, Mr. President, the government has attempted to market this amendment as progressive and farmer-friendly. We have heard pronouncements that it will modernize the dairy industry, that it align Jamaica with international standards, expand opportunities for goat and sheep farmers, promote diversification, and strengthen national food security. However, if that were truly the substance of the legislation before us, then we, on this side, would welcome such a discussion. Indeed, Mr. President, Jamaica should be moving toward a broader and more inclusive dairy industry framework, one that recognizes goat milk, sheep milk, and other legitimate dairy streams as viable opportunities for local agricultural expansion. Such diversification, Mr. President, could create new income streams for rural communities, stimulate agro-processing,
reduce import dependence, and enhance nutritional resilience. But, Mr. President, when we move beyond the government's public relations language and actually examine the wording of the amendment, a very different reality emerges. The bill does not primarily expand dairy opportunities for Jamaican farmers. Instead, it dramatically lowers the threshold for what may legally qualify as a dairy product. Under the current law, and you would have heard it earlier, dairy products are defined as products manufactured wholly or mainly from milk and includes product containing more than 50% solids on a dry weight basis. The amendment before us now proposes that dairy products need not contain or need contain only at least 5% milk in order to qualify. I put it to this Honourable House that this is not modernization, this is dilution. And we must therefore ask, dilution in whose interests? Because, Mr. President, lowering the milk content threshold from more than 50% to a merely 5% does not meaningfully strengthen Jamaican dairy farmers. It does not significantly increase demand for local milk produce. It does not guarantee better farm gate prices. It does not expand local processing capacity. What it does is open the floodgates for highly processed milk substitutes, imported dairy analogs, and synthetic heavily extended milk-based products to enter into the country under the protected and trusted label of dairy. Mr. President, the danger here is economic, nutritional, and regulatory. Economically, small dairy farmers are already struggling. Feed costs rising, land pressures increasing, climate variability affecting pasture conditions, energy costs continue to squeeze agro-processors, and imported products already dominate shelf space. Instead of using this legislation to strengthen the local production linkages, the government appears prepared to weaken the very identity of milk itself. Mr. President, when a product with only 5% milk content can legally qualify as a dairy product, we're effectively telling the consumers that imitation and substitution are equal to authentic agricultural products. And who benefits from this arrangement? Certainly not the 50% of Jamaica small dairy farmers in St. Thomas. That is widely considered the top producer of saleable milk, saleable fresh milk in the country. Certainly not in Clarendon and St. Elizabeth, where there is a high concentration of the country's registered dairy farmers and small-scale milk production. And certainly not in St. Catherine and St. Anne, that host large dairy farms and fresh milk processing plants. The beneficiaries, Mr. President, are likely to be large importers, food processors, and distributors capable of importing cheaper milk derivatives, powdered substitute, vegetable fat blends, and ultra-processed dairy analogs at lower costs. Mr. President, we must also confront the public health implications of this amendment. Consumers generally associate the term milk or dairy with nutritional value, particularly protein, calcium, vitamins, and essential fats associated with genuine milk products. But when products containing only 5% milk can be legally categorized as dairy, there's a significant risk of nutritional deception. Many heavily diluted and substituted base product contains higher levels of added sugars, vegetable oils and fats, artificial stabilizers and flavor enhancers, low protein density, and reduced calcium bioavailability compared to genuine milk products. This becomes especially concerning for children in formative development stages, elderly persons requiring adequate calcium intake, low-income households relying on dairy for nutritional supplementation, and school and institutional feeding programs that may unknowingly procure lower quality substitute under the Dairy Board classification. Mr. President, food security is not merely about volume, it's about nutritional integrity. A country cannot claim to strengthen food security while simultaneously weakening food standards. And this is why the amendment, as currently drafted, creates serious policy contradictions. The government says the bill supports local farmers, but the amendments lowers real milk requirements. The government says the bill promotes diversification, but there are no accompanying provisions incentivizing local goat or sheep milk production. Mr. President, perhaps, Mr. President, the greatest concern arising from this amendment, or at least for me personally, and I know that this concerns the majority of Jamaicans, is the justification advanced in the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons that these changes are being made in keeping with international standards. Let me just read the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons verbatim. This bill seeks to amend the Jamaica Dairy Development Board Act in order to expand the definition of milk in keeping with international standards and otherwise to modernize other terms and provisions of the Act to accord with the changes in the dairy industry. Mr. President, when you examine the amendment to Section 2, it defines dairy products as food and beverages made from milk from any animal. Foods and beverages made from milk from any animal. Mr. President, this may appear harmless on paper, but legislations do not exist in a cultural vacuum. Food is not merely commerce. Food is culture, food is identity, and food is tradition. And food is deeply connected to the values, history, and lived experiences of our people. Jamaicans have a long-standing cultural understanding and sensitivity regarding what animals are considered appropriate for human consumption and what animal-derived products are socially and culturally acceptable. Therefore, when the legislation introduces broad and undefined language such as milk from any animal, the Parliament, Mr. President, must proceed carefully and responsibly. Because, Mr. President, many Jamaicans will legitimately ask, what exactly does any animal mean? What limitations exist? What protections are established? And who determines what may ultimately enter the Jamaican food chain under the label of dairy? Mr. President, international standards cannot automatically supersede Jamaica's cultural norms and public expectations and consumer confidence. We are not obligated to blindly import every external industrial or commercial standard simply because it exists elsewhere. Jamaica must retain the sovereign right to define food standards consistent with our cultural realities, public health priorities, and social values. And this concern, Mr. President, is not irrational. Around the world, modern food manufacturing has increasingly moved forward towards synthetic proteins, laboratory-derived food substances, heavily processed animal analogs, and unconventional dairy alternatives. So when the legislation uses expansive language without clear boundaries, it creates uncertainty and anxiety among ordinary Jamaicans about the future direction of food regulation in the country. Mr. President, precision in legislation matters. If the government's true intention is simply to recognize legitimate dairy products from cows, sheep, and goats, then the legislation should have said it should not rely on vague terminology such as any animal, which unnecessarily broadens, it unnecessarily, I think, it doesn't reflect properly when you take into consideration the cultural sensitivity in Jamaica in terms of what we consider edible and what we do not consider edible, Mr. President. Accordingly, Mr. President, I propose that the amendment revise a specifically defined approved dairy animal, for example. So milk means the normal mammary secretion obtained from cows, goats, sheep, and other animals, as may specifically prescribed by regulation subject to affirmative resolution, something like that. Affirmative resolution by the Parliament. Yeah, this approach will preserve the Parliament.
We have a good thing going, right? If you want to, yeah, we have a good thing going. No, you can't stand up. We have a good thing going. So what you do for me, just make the proposed amendment when you finish, and then we deal with it in committee. I tend to agree with you to an extent because I think they're trying to get away from almond milk, oats milk, all kind of milk that. Everything is a milk these days. Maybe that's why they're saying.
But we don't drink camel milk and buffalo milk and deer milk.
What if we had it? We would
but
drink
anyways,
it.
We can get to that. We can get to that. So this approach would preserve parliamentary oversight, protect cultural sensitivities, strengthen consumer confidence, ensure transparency in food regulation, and prevent arbitrary expansion of the definition of dairy products in the future. Mr. President, modernization must never come at the expense of cultural legitimacy and public trust. The Jamaican people deserves clarity about what is entering the food system, what standards are being adopted in their name, and whether those standards genuinely reflect Jamaica's reality rather than simply external commercial trends. Mr. President, if the government genuinely intends to support diversification into goat and sheep dairy production, then the legislation should have explicitly done the following. Expand the definition of milk to include milk derived from cows, goats, sheep, and other approved dairy animals. Maintain meaningful minimum milk content thresholds for products classified as dairy products. Establish separate labeling standards for dairy substitute and dairy analogs. Establish separate labeling standards for approved dairy animals. Create protection against misleading marketing practices, and require transparent country of origin label for imported dairy-based products. Mr. President, the bill needs some amendment. Accordingly, I propose the aforementioned changes, and we can discuss those at the appropriate time. This legislation must be judged not on slogans, but on consequences. And the consequence of this amendment, as presently drafted, may very well be weakening Jamaica dairy production under the guise of modernization. At a time when Jamaica should be strengthening local agriculture, deepening rural economic resilience, and reducing import dependence, this bill risks normalizing dilution instead of production. The future of Jamaica agriculture cannot rest on replacing real milk with substitutes while calling it development. Real food security requires real farmers, real production, real nutrition, real standards, and cultural insensitivity. For those reasons, Mr. President, I urge that the bill be amended as aforementioned before passage. Please, yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Bernard. Senator Morgan, am I recognizing you from a seat other than your own? Yes, well, I so recognize, and you can proceed when you're ready. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Let me say that at the very outset, that I have more than just a passing interest in matters pertaining to domestic agricultural production. I had the good fortune of working closely with farmers across Jamaica and many stakeholders in agribusiness, Mr. President, when I served in a previous incarnation as Deputy Spokesman on Agriculture, when we were sitting on the other side. Indeed, I have sat in several meetings and been in many rooms where dairy farmers and other industry stakeholders have made strong representation for greater protection and support for their activities and optimization of their profit insofar as adjusting the regime vis-a-vis the definition of milk and how imports in particular are treated. And in large measure, Mr. President, I can say that the legislation before us this morning seeking to amend the Act such that the definition of milk is expanded and adjusting the threshold, lowering it from the previous 50% or the existing 50% to 5% is something that aligns and accords not only with international standards and best practice, but also the interests and the advocacy of our nation's dairy farmers. I don't know if Senator Bernard has had copious stakeholder consultations in the way that other participants and activists in the field would have. And it is within this context, Mr. President, that I rise to support this bill to amend the Jamaica Dairy Development Board Act and expand the definitions. Mr. President, as I said just now, I welcome the move because, among other things, it harmonizes. It brings the regime that obtains here in Jamaica in line with what obtains internationally. I must indicate, Mr. President, that I have been observing, I have been learning vicariously, and I am particularly delighted about a kind of a new lease on life that dairy is having in Jamaica. Indeed, if I may say so myself, dairy farming and milk production in Jamaica is making a comeback. One way of looking at it, Mr. President, as they would say elsewhere, here in Jamaica, under this Andrew Holness-led government, we are making dairy farming and milk production great again, Mr. President. Because many of us will recall, and we would have seen the film Life and Death, and we, Senator Hill and others, are mindful of some of the reform, the neoliberal reform and global regime impositions that would have seen certain protections for the agricultural sector and indeed the influx of powdered milk products, yes, reconstituted milk, take off and proliferate, so much so that many farmers were displaced. And those who know well about creamer, as they do Goodyear, and those who had proximity to the then administration of the early 1990s, the period that coincides with the greatest and most adverse displacement of our dairy farmers, should be guided and tread cautiously on this particular subject matter, Mr. President. So I wish to commend the leadership of the Jamaica Dairy Development Board, and what is particularly instructive, they say seeing is believing, Mr. President, and what is instructive and compelling is that our dairy sector, insofar as the leadership of the Jamaica Dairy Development Board, is led by not just a talker, it is led by a doer, someone who gets his hands dirty and himself is involved in production. A goat farmer in the person of the Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Dairy Development Board, Mr. Devon Sayers. I tip my hand to him. I tip my hand to all the other hardworking goat and cattle farmers across Jamaica, the dairy farmers who are in the business of ensuring that dairy is being repositioned in Jamaica. It bounces back, and we know the positive spin-offs that a vibrant dairy sector has, because it employs persons, it links us back into industry through agri-business integration, and it holds vistas, Mr. President, for domestic agricultural production. For our part, we know that in our school feeding program, milk-related products and indeed dairy-related inputs like butter and other solutions are solutions that we rely heavily on. So speaking from the perspective of the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, we take particular delight in the work of our dairy farmers, and we are mindful that it is instrumental in the support. Many forms of milk-related products are instrumental in the support via the school feeding program to our nation's children as we make them as prepared as possible, Mr. President, to receive instruction and go on to perform in ways that we collectively desire as a country. Mr. President, there is invariably this tendency on the part of the members opposite, and Senator Bernard is fast developing a reputation, if I may call it that, for viewing things in isolation, just extracting bits and pieces, not synthesizing, not putting things together. Invariably, Mr. President, the members opposite are in the business of missing the forest for the trees. What do I mean by that? Senator Bernard, and I believe he has the concurrence of the members opposite, has described the regime and the amendment being moved by way of this bill this morning as something that will adversely impact the dairy sector, when it is the converse, the diametric opposite, Mr. President, that holds true. It holds true in the sense that many dairy farmers and stakeholders across Jamaica have been making representation for precisely these amendments. That's the representation they have been making. And we consider ourselves a responsive, a caring, attentive, and listening government. We listen to the people who not just talk, but the people who are in the farms, attending to their dairy animals, whether it is sheep, goat, or cattle, and getting their hands dirty, not just the veranda chair experts. Yes? So we take note of what they have said, and contrary to the impression being given by Senator Bernard, he used the term open up the floodgates, and much to the contrary, Mr. President, what this particular amendment seeks to do, and what the legislation before us this morning seeks to do, is essentially to provide greater protection to our dairy farmers. Because when you lower the threshold, Mr. President, those products and byproducts of milk that would come into country under the guise of, yes, or not being a milk product, those products will now be in the regime because they no longer have that wiggle room and room to come into country and compete with the dairy farmers. So in short, when the threshold is lowered from 50% to 5%, it will capture and relate to a much more expansive, a larger group of products. And those products will now be brought into the tax net. Jamaica's fiscal coffers will not only attain tax revenue, but quite importantly, the farmers will find that the playing field, Mr. President, which frustrates many farmers, the unleveled playing field is the bane of their existence. And to the extent that you have the threshold being lowered from 50% to 5%, there are more products that may be imported into Jamaica that will now fall within the context of the cess. And there is where the farmers who are producing locally will derive benefit. I am detecting a degree of consternation, Mr. President, on the part of some of my colleagues opposite. But if only they would lend their ears, apply their ear, and be very clear as to what is being communicated, I trust and assert that they will be better served. So for the benefit of those who may not have gotten it the first time around, as it is at present, our dairy farmers would be invariably competing with the products of merchants who import items into the country and are not captured under the existing cess regime by virtue of the milk-related threshold and the content therein. And they compete against our dairy farmers. And what that means is that a disservice is done to them. Yes? So to the extent that we are effecting this adjustment, that wiggle room, that, if for want of a better expression, leakage that would ensue is now being plugged, and a wider group, a wider suite of products are now captured, and therefore that playing field that was unleveled is now being leveled for our hard-working, industrious, enterprising, and deserving dairy farmers, Mr. President. So there's no floodgate being opened. In fact, it is protection for our local farmers that we are seeking to secure. I spoke earlier, Mr. President, of this kind of mechanism and practice of looking at things in a piecemeal way rather than in a cohesive way. There is no administration in the history of this country, Mr. President, who has done more for farmers generally, and in particular our dairy farmers, than this current Andrew Holness-led administration, Mr. President. When you think of farm roads, because yes, farm roads do pertain as well to our dairy farmers, as they do to all farmers and stakeholders in the agricultural sector. And the number, the square kilometers of farm roads and the number of resources that have been dedicated to rehabilitating farm roads are unmatched and is unparalleled by any administration that would have served before in this country. And we are delighted about that, Mr. President. We're standing by our farmers and we're making farming great again. Mr. President, animal genetics is also an important area because support for dairy has to also include that scientific, that biological side of the equation, where we're seeking to upskill farmers, ensure that we are optimizing genetic stock and keeping our sector on the cutting edge. Because in the fine traditions of the late Hopton Leckie, the gentleman who is credited with having developed the Jamaica Hope, we are ensuring that we put his successors, the men and women, the youngsters, boys and girls, who are following behind him, who are just as enterprising and as optimistic, that we can create an avenue for them. In as much as Dr. Leckie had it some time ago, we can create an avenue for them to go on to develop and innovate. That's what the government supports, Mr. President. So in addition to farm roads and animal genetics, there's also the business of research, bodles and other elements of research being undertaken by the academy. Not least, what is going on at the College of Agriculture, Science and Education, CASE. And CASE, by the way, is doing a fantastic job over in Pasley Gardens, Portland, and we want to commend the leadership and stakeholders over at CASE for their sterling work. And we trust that they will continue to grow, Mr. President, from strength to strength in relation to their animal husbandry and, of course, ensuring that there is a higher education solution and offering to our Jamaican brothers and sisters who are seeking to engage in and enter the farming and agricultural space, whether they're coming out of Nakalva, whether they're coming out of the Sydney Pagan Agricultural School or any other institution at the secondary level. They can see the offerings and the programs at CASE as being programs of choice and programs that will help them to optimize in terms of their personal development. There's also cold storage, Mr. President. For many years, just like the rural school bus system, cold storage is something that used to just be talked about in this country. It is this government, Mr. President, that is making cold storage solutions available to the nation's farmers. And we on this side are delighted at the advent of cold storage facilities and many others that will be coming on stream in the months and years ahead.
Sorry, just to make a correction to you, Leckie was Thomas. So let me be right now, Senator Brown. Let me be right now, please. It's Thomas.
You can stay left and let the president be right.
It's Thomas Phillip. So he was called T.P. Lecky.
T.P. Lecky, that affable, that admired.
He's a Portlander, by the way. I guess you know that.
Well, there you go. He's widely regarded. He's widely regarded as someone who caused Jamaicans to think big and place Jamaica on the map in the way others have in their various fields of endeavor. Yes? So we hail the man, the late T.P. Lecky, for his exploits in dairy farming, Mr. President, and the development of the Jamaica Hope. So, Mr. President, I made mention of research via the academy, meaning our institutions of higher learning and bodles. I must also touch on technical support, because a great part of what the Jamaica Dairy Development Board and others who are engaged in the sector do from a leadership standpoint is provide critical and much needed technical support that is aimed at upskilling and imparting to our hardworking dairy farmers, Mr. President, the importance of best practices, the importance of applying those best practices, and of course, on application of best practice, you are able to optimize and receive greater value for your investment as a dairy farmer, and that is what this government stands behind, Mr. President. People doing things in a smart and prudent way, in a fit-for-purpose way, and taking the guidance from the experts, even when there are some among us who are not in the business of taking guidance and good tutelage from the people with the know-how and the expertise. So I want to big up our Dairy Farming Association in that regard, and of course all those who work to provide technical support and extension services to them. Mr. President, one of the biggest inhibitors and binding constraints on agricultural enterprise, you may want to listen to this one, Lammy, is a two-foot post. Farm theft, or predial larceny, is one of the greatest thorns in the side of our farmers. Indeed, it remains the bane of the existence of our farmers. Farmers of small ruminants and the farmers of dairy and beef cattle. And you have to pause, Mr. President, to take stock and take note of what this administration has been doing to tackle the scourge of farm theft. I recall vividly watching an item of news once, and there is this mother, a farmer, who had, I believe she had a heifer, a cow, that she was seeking to and looking to bring to market in order to help finance her daughter's university or college education, Mr. President. And I remember seeing the item of news and the lady crying eye water at the sight of her cattle, who I believe was in calf, who was basically butchered, slaughtered, and the innards of the animal was left. They took away the meat, of course, and the young one, being carried by the heifer at the time, was also left strewn out. And you can just imagine how horrific a sight that is to a farmer like that particular lady and others who would have been victimized by the proverbial two-foot post, Mr. President. It is this government that is changing the game in relation to in relation to farm theft and the people who would want to reap what they did not sow. So in encouraging and supporting the people who put in the hard work and deserve the reward of seeing their product, whether it's a crop or an animal, come to market and come to fruition, we have injected considerable support, and we have done tremendous work in relation to mitigating and militating against the scourge of farm theft, Mr. President. This administration has moved to institute what is referred to as agricultural wardens, and I believe both the Jamaica Dairy Development Board as well as the Dairy Farmers Association all across the length and breadth of Jamaica welcome the initiative by our hard-working Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, the Honourable Floyd Green, my good friend and colleague, who is doing sterling work in relation to mitigating and militating against farm theft, Mr. President. So we have instituted the agricultural wardens, and this is being anchored by the JCF, the Jamaica Constabulary Force, in the sense that ambitious Jamaican men and women are being invited to and are being provided with the training to go out and serve as agricultural wardens. Because this will, we're not suggesting in any way that it will bring the business of farm theft and people's animals and crops being stolen. But it will add a layer of protection, and it will add to the suite of activities and infrastructure that serves to discourage and deter. That's what we're doing with agricultural wardens, Mr. President. We are discouraging and we are deterring the two-foot puss. And on this side, we do so without apology, Mr. President. So the agricultural wardens will be deployed across the length and breadth of Jamaica, and they are going to be a part of a division, a branch of the Jamaica Constabulary Force that is called the Agricultural Protection Branch. Mr. President, you would have heard Senator Senator Bernard speak to the hazard of the sweeping definition, any animal. He lamented and in fact is proposing to move an amendment to the definition or the word set out at section 2 of the Act, where it says dairy products means foods and beverages made from at least 5% of milk from any animal. What I'd like to just apprise Senator Bernard, as I do sotto voce time and again to the senator seated beside him, Senator Maziki Thame, who I use Them. Well, we are you in know as Maziki Thame. Mr. President, yes, ma'am, we're getting there, coming to the end of the innings, and we're still pushing it through mid-wicket and through extra cover. So, Mr. President, through the midfield, if you were, and we can still come down the flanks. Remember, Elephant Man said down the flank, we are go down the flank? Very well. So, Mr. President.
Well, Senator, you have 7 minutes to finish, go down the flank.
Yes,
so.
please. Yes, please. Going down the flank, and I'm crossing it inside to have coffee sandwich. So, Mr. President, we have to appreciate that Jamaica is a fledgling and vibrant democracy, and here in Jamaica, we operate a free market economy. So you may well have produce coming into country that are derived from animals. So, for example, dairy-related produce and dairy milk byproducts that come into country and are not derived from cows, sheep, or goat. In fact, I gather that donkey's milk, in Argentina they call it mare's milk, and you yourself, Mr. President, attest to how highly sought after it is and how widely consumed it is in a particular part of Jamaica.
Well, let me tell you something. No, man, I'm going to tell you.
Yes,
so one of our colleagues went to Turkey and brought some skin lotion, it's a donkey milk skin lotion, and it's very good.
There you go.
And you see the result there, right
here. There you go, Mr. President. Yes? So the possibilities are endless. The products derived may not only be limited to the table, they can be used in other applications. And that is important because Minister Hill will welcome that. It holds vistas for the production and linkage with other sectors when you can have certain raw materials, certain inputs serving as the base for other solutions and will help persons come out with more even skin tone and that kind of thing because there are different applications for the product. So I said all of that, Mr. President, to make the point that Senator Bernard ought to appreciate that we operate in a free market economy, and while he may not be in the business of consuming donkey's milk, or pig's milk for that matter, or any other milk. There are persons who, in a free market economy, may elect so to do, because as Devon Sayers, the Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Dairy Development Board, pointed out to me some time ago, one of the highly sought after cheeses, in fact, it is said to be one of the premium, highly sought after and quite expensive cheeses, is a cheese derived from the milk of donkeys, Mr. President. Yes? And I don't know if there's anybody in here who has ever had it. I trust that Cleveland will be trying it out at some point. Huh? Oh, there you go. Yes, the breast man. So to just wrap up, Mr. President, I have in hand here a publication from the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, Mr. President. It is captioned 2025-2026 Achievements, the Era of Transformation and Resilience. Bear in mind, these are achievements, not just talk, not just capping. These are achievements. And it is such a thick publication, Mr. President, and Jamaica. And it is only for one fiscal year, the 2025-2026 fiscal year. So if you can only imagine, Mr. President, when we get to fiscal years 27-26, because we are now in 26-27, when we get to 28-29 and 29-2010, when the 2030 rather, when the people of Jamaica will be making a determination as to who they entrust the governance of this country to for another 5 years. And we encourage them. We say, people, just like what we tell driver, don't stop at all. Continue to repose your trust and confidence. Continue, big up Bujo. Continue to repose your trust and confidence in the people who are faithfully and working in a sterling way and working assiduously to record and bring to bear these achievements, which are not just leaves on a paper, Mr. President. They are of moment and are meaningful in the lives of farmers. Because as I use the next 2 minutes available to me, Mr. President, on page, I know we don't have to, but we couldn't have such a bossy publication that people at the Jamaica Dairy Development Board would have helped to inform. On pages 36 and 37, it underscores and evinces, Mr. President, what the dairy sector has managed to achieve. 9.1 million litres of cow's milk produced, Mr. President. 15,539 litres of goat milk production. Dairy training program executed, 27 farmers trained and certified. Not just training, Mr. President. The people them come away with them qualifications, right? So they were trained and certified in dairy management. And this is just for 25-26. So we're going to go on when we get to 26-27, 27-28, 28-29, when we are step on the gas, and we are press gas, and a press gas, and a press gas, and I make the dairy sector bigger and better, Mr. President. Nikisha have no style, man. She don't know how to Nikisha have no style. So, Mr. President, I commend this publication to the people of Jamaica. I thank the ministry and indeed the government of Jamaica for working so assiduously to secure these achievements. And I am very convinced and assured, Mr. President, that the future of the dairy sector in Jamaica is in good hands, and this country by extension will be better off for the sterling work being done by the Jamaica Dairy Development Board, and indeed by the amendment that we are bringing here today and what it will usher in respect of the protection and optimization of our Jamaica dairy farmers and the sector as a whole. With those brief remarks, Mr. President, brief remarks, I thank you very much, and may it please you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Morgan. Use the other mic as well, Senator Brown. Senator Brown? You want, Miss, you go. Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was my intention today to speak. In fact, this morning when I came, I begged the leader to allow me 1 minute on this bill. But having heard Senator Morgan, I don't want to add to the 1 minute that I requested. His presentation reminded me of a cricket match at Sabina Park. Famous Jamaican fast bowler by the name of Uton Dow. It didn't rain that day. It rained sixes and fours. And Uton Dow made the West Indies team. And he was asked to bowl against Australia. And the Jamaican fans started a chant, "Thou shalt not bowl." You remember it, Keith? Your father would have told you about it. Thou shalt not bowl. In other words, the West Indies could have done without Uton Dow. This debate could have done without the speech of Senator Morgan. We have come here to support the bill. But he finds time to try and disparage members of this side.
No, Senator Brown, with the greatest respect, I never heard him disparage.
He spoke about the reputation that Senator Bernard is developing. So, I know what I'm saying. The bill, in my view, does not address the issues that were raised in an article last August in the Observer, entitled "Dairy Dilemma, Several Factors Keeping Farmers Away from Lucrative Sector." We're talking about the local producing about 11 to 12% of the milk demand. And what this legislation, which we're not opposing today, does, according to Senator Morgan, well, let me first deal with what he says. It's going to make the industry great again. And the language, as he said, came from elsewhere, great again. But Senator Morgan, those who promote the make great again are the same ones who revel in what they call alternative facts. And what we got from you today is a lot of alternative facts. In essence, he's saying to us, Jamaica will be better off by opening up our doors to more imports. And this import will benefit our farmers. Crazy idea. I don't think the farmers support that. It happened in the past and almost wiped them out. And then he says, trying to play to the crowd, oh, we're going to tax the imports and somehow use that tax to help the farmers. So it says. And then the question comes to me, so who's going to pay the tax? The importers or the consumers? And aren't some of the farmers consumers? And the bulk of the tax consumers who are going to pay the tax are poor people sent again, some of whom we'll speak about on the motion for adjournment. So, Senator Morgan is not a good advertisement for this bill, except that he may, like me, seems to have consumed a lot of imported stuff. That's fine, that's fine. I'm not worried about whatever you say. I'm not responding to you. Mr. President,
I would appreciate that if you allow the speaker to talk.
He knows not what he says. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. Mr. President, when young people hear about these imports and the taxation that is going to be leveled on them. It's not surprising that Senator Tomlinson told us in the Senate, and has been confirmed since, that over 58% of our people wishes to migrate, to leave our shores, to leave the prosperity of which you speak. That is a condemnation of your government last 10 years in office. And so, Mr. President, I don't need to say more than that, except to now say what I intended to say in the 1 minute that I'd asked for. So let me say this, President. This morning when I was coming to the Senate, somebody said to me, Senator, what's on the agenda of the Senate today? And I said, we're going to talk about milk, cows and goats. We're going to talk about conch. And the person said to me, Senator, it seems the government and their agents have more concerns, more regards for cows and goats than they have for Buju and people like Buju, who is now dead. May it please you, Mr. President.
Senator, thank you, Senator Brown. Minister?
Mr. President, I thank, first of all the support team from the ministries that have enabled us to take these bills through so fairly efficiently. And we really thank you for your work. I say I'm even at this stage getting additional assistance. Thanks to my colleagues who have participated. And Mr. President, I'd just like to talk to my friend from St. James, Senator Alan Bernard. And Senator Alan Bernard, Mr. President, being my friend, got it all wrong. Let me explain. Right now, the law says that you can, if for milk product, for something to be called a milk product, it must have 50% of solids. That means anything below 50% does not qualify as a milk product by the current definition. The problem with that is anything then could be imported with a lesser percentage and be used in the market. That was the wrong way to be. I tell you why. Because now that it's 5%, anything over 5% has to be classified as a milk product, and which means, therefore, that anything that is coming in, and here I want to inject something that you may not have been aware of. The minister is the one who gives the authority to import milk products. And therefore, any product now over 5% has to get his permission and has to be classified as a milk product. But so the matter of opening the floodgates is all wrong. In fact, what the minister is doing is, if there was a floodgate, he is making it sure that only a tiny percent of 5% that can come in and not be called milk and pay a cess. So it is changing the whole idea. The idea, of course, as well, of animals. We talk about normal ruminants here. So pigs need not apply. Pig is not Pig is not a ruminant, first of all. It's so, any pig is not, pig meat not apply. Okay? It's not a ruminant. So we're saying to you that normal ruminants, we know what they are in Jamaica. Okay. We know, say, as we would say in St. Elizabeth, I'm not from the city like you, Senator Bernard. We come from St. Elizabeth. So we call anything that chew the cud. You know what I mean? As a ruminant. And pigs are not in there. So the narrowness is there. And remember now, the minister who is elected by the people will give the approval of what must come in so that there is a control. The Ministry of Health, incidentally, gave its no objection to the framing and the way this bill was framed. I want to mention as well that the way it's defined now, I, as a marketer of milk products, I want to make really exceptional ice cream like that one that we all love. So I say, I don't have to stay at 5%. I can put in 50%, 75% of milk products in my ice cream and differentiate it for what exists. So marketing and the business environment will take care of what goes into it, and the consumers will decide what to buy. I like that kind of marketplace. I support that kind of marketplace. So your fear is misplaced. So, Mr. President, as we look at this bill that will now redefine what is actually called milk, and that we do not leave a big open gateway called 50%, that anything below 50% can come in. No. Anything that is now 5% and above will have to pay a cess and will therefore help the industry here. So we're looking forward, and the industry, this is requested by the industry. A lot of the industry players I know want this kind of legislation because that's how the Andrew Holness administration makes legislation. We consult with people. We consult with people who want to make legislation work for the economy. Mr. President, I again thank my colleague ministers and recommend that we have a second reading of the bill, if it pleases you.
Thank you very much, Minister Hill. The question is that the bill be read for a second time. Those in favor? Against?
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Jamaica Dairy Development Board Act, expand the definition of milk in keeping with international standards, and provide for connected matters read a second time.
Thank you very much. The Senate will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. Senator Bernard, your interest is in what? To where? So I put clause 1. Those in favor? Against? Clause 2, there is amendment to be proposed by Senator Bernard. No, you can sit.
So, President, the definition of dairy products. The recommendation is that we strike from any animal, including ruminants, because when we come, and I'll make another definition to what milk means, which will read, milk means the normal mammary secretion obtained from cows, goats, sheep, and such other animals as may be specifically prescribed by regulation subject to affirmative resolution of the Parliament.
Members, Minister, you want to respond? Because you did in a way, you're not responding. Okay, members would have heard the proposed amendment to clause number 2. So I put the amendment. Those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Okay, so that's the noes have it. So I now put clause 2 as it's. Yes, Senator Brown.
the word in any animal, including ruminants. Are there some ruminants that are not animals? And maybe you're technical people because
I
there's
don't
a
think a
redundancy.
pig is not a ruminant, but a camel would be a ruminant.
Nobody says any animal.
Yeah.
Camel.
It's about hoofed. It's about the foot. I mean, definition of ruminant.
But it says any. It says any. I mean, it says any animal. So
Had to do
any
with the
animal.
foot. So
Cat,
maybe,
dog.
hold on, maybe could we just see from the technical people?
No, I'm saying if you say animals, including ruminants, what are the other types of animals other than ruminants that you're contemplating? Because he said animals.
No, because a donkey is a ruminant.
A donkey is a ruminant.
Okay.
The issue is, though, if you may...
Can I just...
Go
I'm not
finish.
sure I explained. Did you understand what the question I was asking? I'm saying you say any animal. So this is a broad framework. You make it clear that when you're saying any animal, you are including ruminants. So I want to know, apart from ruminants, what kind of animals are you contemplating? I'm not understanding.
Any milk, though, I will check in a minute, but the any milk has to be approved by the minister and must be also agreed by the Ministry of Health.
All right, you're going to check something. What, Senator Brown, let the minister just check.
Including a ruminant. I want to know what
Mr. President.
Yeah, Senator Hill. No, you can't sit, man.
Sorry, I forgot. It's committee. We're in committee. Mr. President, I hear the comments from across the field, but you know, we make laws not just for today. So I don't know. I can tell you this. 5 years ago, no, I never heard about anything like, for instance, milk from wheat and milk from almonds, and things do change. Okay, just a minute. So the law is written, including ruminants, but remember, the minister, in fact, ministers, if it's going to be food, Minister of Health, has to approve. So we need the broad approach. Clearly, we talk about ruminants in Jamaica, and I think the way it's drafted gives the room for expansion if it is needed, and I believe it's fine as it is.
Thank you very much. So I put clause 2. Those in favor? Against? I put clauses 3, 4, and 5. Those in favor? No, I can't hear you now. Those in favor? Thank you. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Against? The question is that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Those in favor? Against? I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Minister?
Mr. President, I ask for the bill to be read a third time.
You should have heard the question. In favor? Against?
A bill entitled, An Act to Amend the Jamaica Dairy Development Board Act, expand the definition of milk in keeping with international standards, and provide for connected matters read a third time and passed.
Thank you very much. Just before you proceed, Minister, it was my oversight that I failed to recognize in the chamber my very good friend, sometimes, Dr. Gavin Bellamy, who is the CEO of the National Fisheries Authority. And I must say that I heard a phrase the other day that said, eat the lion, admire the parrot. Or eat the lion, love the parrot, which refers to the eating of lionfish, which I've only just recently had and found it quite delectable. Fried or stewed, which is an invasive species, which I think you are encouraging people to eat. So eat the lion, love the parrot. And Devon Sayers, who is from the Jamaica Development, the Dairy Development Board, Dr. Sophia Ramfeld, Director of Veterinary Services. Lovely to meet you. Marcia Locke, the Senior Assistant Attorney General. Ruth Ann White, Crown Counsel. And Carisha Morrison, who is an agricultural policy analyst. Welcome to the Parliament, and thank you very much for all the assistance that you have given. Minister.
Mr. President, I ask that the bill be read for the third time. We finished. We did. Right. Passed. Okay. Good. We're not.
Yeah, go ahead, Minister, please.
Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
Members should have heard the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Against? This is the insurance amendment of the 12th schedule, eh? Yes, it's being referred to a committee, correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead,
That's
please.
all.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Mr. President, I ask that the motion be approved.
Members should have heard the question. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. The question, of course, that you just agreed to was that the motion, notice of which the Minister gave earlier, was to be approved in relation to the Insurance Amendment 12 Schedule Regulation 2026 Regulations Committee. Minister?
Mr. President, it's not, we don't plan to do any further business today, so I ask that the Senate be...
Thank you, Leader. There is a motion on the adjournment from Senator Gale, which I was informed of earlier. Minister Hill, there was a motion on the adjournment by Senator Gale that I was informed of earlier, so we'll take it now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's all right, man. No fuss. And your work.
Senator Gale, if you just move, you can't move down one. If you could just sit in a seat that has the two mics, because we're having some difficulty. Thank you, Senator Gale.
Thank you, Mr. President. And you did advise me to speak from a seat other than my own, sir. So I rise on the point of adjournment on a motion that, as we observe Workers' Week 2026, under the theme, Voices Heard, Shaping Labor Policies in an Evolving Labor Market. Mr. President, I take this opportunity to pay tribute to the men and women of Jamaica whose labor, sacrifice, skill, and dedication continue to build and sustain our nation. From our farmers, sir, our teachers, our nurses, our public servants, to our artisans, factory workers, transport operators, hospitality employees, all our professionals, those in the financial sector, and even our entrepreneurs. It is the Jamaican worker who transforms ambition into achievement and who remains the foundation of national development. Mr. President, every sector of our economy and every community across this country bears the imprint of their hard work and commitment. And so, Mr. President, we must also recognize the historic contribution of the trade union movement, which for many decades has been the steadfast defender of workers' rights, dignity, and social justice. Through advocacy, Mr. President, collective bargaining and social dialogue, trade unions have helped secure many of the protections and benefits of the Jamaican workers enjoy today. This includes fair wages, improved working conditions, occupational protections, and mechanisms for the resolutions of disputes. Their contribution forms an important part of the Jamaica's democratic and development journey. We must commend our trade union movement. You know, as we celebrate the gains made, we must remain vigilant in preserving and strengthening the legislative framework that protects the working people. Labor legislation must continue to evolve to meet modern realities whilst maintaining the fundamental principles of fairness and equity. And Mr. President, human dignity. Workers must never be required to bear the burden of economic transformation without adequate protections and opportunities. And so in this regard, Mr. President, I support the need and the response for the occupational safety and health legislation to be returned to Parliament for consideration and passage. You know, the Honourable Minister Pernell Charles Jr. in his sectorial presentation would have stated that the Ministry and the OPC have now arrived at a settled draft of the bill, and the consultations with the relevant ministries, departments, and agencies are almost concluded. Mr. President, I welcome this piece of news. Jamaican workers deserve a modern and comprehensive legal framework that safeguards their health, safety, and welfare in the workplace, and also that it reflects international best practices. Mr. President, the future of work is rapidly emerging before us. Artificial intelligence, automation, digitalization, and new forms of employment will create opportunities for growth and innovation, but they will also present persistent, significant challenges for workers, employers, and us as policymakers alike. So navigating these transitions successfully, Mr. President, will require a genuine partnership among labor, capital, and the state, grounded, sir, with dialogue, mutual respect, and shared responsibility. You know, President, as industries transform, skill requirements evolve, and work arrangements become more flexible, we must ensure that workers are not left behind. And I want to state this. If the conditions under which work is performed must change, then the conditions governing how workers work must also change. This includes investment in training and lifelong learning, protection of workers' rights in emerging forms of employment, fair access to technology, and social protection systems capable of supporting workers through periods of transition. Mr. President, you know, this week I heard 2 presentations in that other space. I want to commend the Honorable Minister of Labour, Colonel Charles Jr., for his future outlook on the work of the future in Jamaica and the preservation of the working class. I want to commend him. I also want to commend Minister Audrey Marks for her future plans in digitalization, which will promote productivity in this country. Mr. President, let Workers' Week therefore be not only a celebration of the contribution of Jamaica's working people, but also a recommitment to building a future of work that is productive, inclusive, safe, and just. And you know, the Minister of Labour and Social Security has advised the public that by virtue of Section 2 of the Holidays Public General Act and paragraph 4 of the schedule, National Labour Day 2026 will be observed on Monday, May 25, 2026. And so the public is further advised that Saturday, May 23rd is not a public holiday, and accordingly, Monday, May 25th, 2026 shall be observed this year as National Labour Day in Jamaica. And I thought it's important, Mr. President, to highlight that. And so, to every Jamaican worker, past and present, I extend sincere gratitude and appreciation. Your labor strengthens our economy, enriches our communities, and advances our nation. And through your efforts, through our collective commitment to progress, we affirm that one people, one purpose, in all things, Jamaica wins. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Cavan Gale, President General of the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, and I call on your colleague, Senator Lambert Brown, to offer his contribution. I'm getting there. President of the UAW, to give his contribution to this most important intervention from you both. Thank you very much.
President, you implicitly gave me permission to speak from a seat other than my own.
Yes, I did so already.
I took that. And just before the dairy people leave, well, Senator Floyd Morris, who normally sits where I sit, is currently in Baku, Azerbaijan. And we had an exchange, not just about congratulating him on Arsenal winning against Rahman and myself and Abkhaz Manu, but I told him that in Azerbaijan, I am told that they drink the milk from the horse. And he said he's not going to drink any milk while he's there. But I wanted to mention that when we discuss the dairy issue, that these cultural things has its impact. Senator Gale, I promise you, I agree with 99.9% of what you said. I'm not going to deal with the 0.1 that we disagree. I fully agree with your commendation of the working people and the workers in general in the country. Mr. President, permit me on a personal note, and I also speak on behalf of my leader and a lot of Jamaicans, to single out a particular set of workers. And I speak of the household domestic workers. They mold us. They are our teachers. When I think of Miss Queenie and my grandchildren, I don't know Miss Bev. If she mold you, I'll give her the credit. and you the debit. So, in my own household, Miss Joy and Miss Paulette. Without them, I wouldn't be here. And as we get older, President, there are a group of workers called caregivers, whether in Jamaica or abroad, who we owe a lot to. And Senator Thompson, I know that in the medical field, you know the importance of these caregivers, and I want to big them up. Usually they're not very well remunerated, but their contribution far surpass the remuneration they receive. And if it's just some praise we can give them, even once a year, Senator Gill, they are deserving of it. I try every day to give mine some praise. Sometimes I tease my own, my wife calls her the accountant in the house. And I've now gotten into a habit, which I hope she don't hold me too firm to, where I said to her, Miss Joy, the bird flew into the house and left a little extra for you. And it comes in currency from BOJ. So I find a little way to heal them up, and I want to. In this Workers' Week, people like Shirley Price, who have organized the household workers in a union, they are deserving of our support. President, having said that, I hail up all the workers, whether it be backside, tourism, financial sector, agriculture, I hail the garbage collectors, some of whom I represent. But I want to urge Senator Gill, your call for OSHA, I had to tick that off, so we agree. We need the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Pronto. You know my little story? That as big as the Alpha Tree clock is, we have been debating OSHA from it was a little wristwatch until now it reached as big as a clock. That's how long it has taken us not to pass this important piece of legislation. And in fact, we're operating on legislation with its genesis in the 1940s. Time come. I also wish, Senator Gill, and I know you support me on this, that Convention 158 of the ILO on termination of employment should be ratified by the government of Jamaica in honor of our workers. I think you'll also agree with me in the year that we celebrate 50th anniversary of the Labor Relations and Industrial Dispute Act, Labor Relations Code, and the IDT, and there's a symposium this week. I didn't see you there, but a very successful symposium. That in that context, we need to ask the government. In that context, we need to ask the government to move with dispatch that awards for unfair dismissal made by the Industrial Dispute Tribunal should be treated, Senator Roseman, you have heard me say it over and over again, like court judgment, not tax. And at the seminar, the High Commissioner for Trinidad was present, and she made the point that in Trinidad, such awards are not taxed. So, with that, big up the workers of Jamaica. You see, President, I don't know the Latin term. And it's a weird thing that in our parliament, that we're only allowed to speak English. We are allowed also to freely speak Latin. But Patois? Patois? Time come for the workers of Jamaica who talk Patois to hear the language speak in these houses much more frequently and much more fluently. May it please you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much for the interventions of both members of the Senate who wear two hats at all times, their trade union hat and their hats as legislators in this country. Thank you very much to both of you. I just point out that tomorrow, that's the 23rd of May, it is the birthday of Sam Sharp, who was the leader of the Baptist Wars from in 1831, in Christmas of 1831, and is perhaps the first time that workers, if you will, enslaved Africans were called to strike. So it is noted that we celebrate his birthday tomorrow, Saturday, and there is the usual event at Hero Circle, those of you who can attend. I know, Senator, I am getting there. I know that Senator Gale will be there. Sam Sharp, of course, was from an estate in St. James, and no doubt there will be celebrations to mark his birth there. It always fascinates me to remember and to point out that people do not recall that Sam Sharp was amongst a number of national heroes and participants in various rebellions who had their criminal convictions expunged, and the recognition of them that their activities were not criminal but acts of liberation. And I think that we need to really they broke the rules of man. They broke the rules of man, but not the rules of God. And we have to recognize. So Sam Sharp, he would have been very amused by that exchange, I have no doubt. But Sam Sharp, we remember him. And there are two National Labor Day projects tomorrow. One is at on Monday. Sorry, thank you, Senator Brown. One is at the Early Childhood Institution in St. Elizabeth in Lewistown, and the other one is at Sabina Park here in the capital. So I urge those of you who can to participate in the national projects if possible, or certainly in whatever projects are taking place in your individual community, as we mark the contribution of Sam Sharp and all our workers to the development of this Jamaican land we love. Minister?
Mr. President, we have no plans for further business today in the Senate. Would you, we're asking that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed.
Thank you very much. The question is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Against? This Honorable Senate now stands adjourned for a date to be fixed. Thank you all very much. Please keep safe over the weekend. Keep safe on the roads and in your society. Thank you very much.
Yo, babes, why me I call you so much time and I not get you? Sorry me lick you again yesterday. Yo, me know me mess up, but I can't wear them something there road and I expect me to react. I know me jealous and fool and easy to lose my temper, but call me back here. Still not get tired. Hey, girl, think me have to call your phone? You know who you deal with? You think I want to lick me again next time? Eh?
It doesn't have to be this way. You can leave an abusive relationship. Just call 876-553-0372. We will help you.
Hey, just a reminder, your mental health is just as important as your physical health. If you're feeling overwhelmed, try talking to a trusted friend or family member. You don't have to go through it alone. Sometimes sharing your feelings can make a big difference. If you need more support, don't hesitate to reach out to the Health and Wellness Ministry's Suicide Prevention Helpline at 888-NEW-LIFE. That's 888-639-5433. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. Your feelings matter, and there are people ready to listen. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.
One people, one purpose. Here we sing, Jamaica always win.
Jamaica, Monday, May 25 is Labor Day. The focus this year is the restoration of sports, early childhood, and community facilities. Make sure to volunteer, cause we are one people.
One people, one purpose. In all things, Jamaica always wins. Yes, we always win. Always win.
Motorists, as Minister of Justice, I appeal to you, obey the road code, pay your ticket on time, and only go to court if the ticket is being contested. Close to 80% of matters coming to the parish courts are for traffic breaches. Let's work together to make our roads safe and ease the burden on our courts.
Now, the Public Broadcasting Corporation of Jamaica, or PBCJ, is Jamaica's lone public service television broadcaster. We are charged with serving all audiences through the provision of impartial, high quality and distinctive content which informs, educates and entertains, hence the PBCJ's tagline, the People's Station.
We produce a variety of content from current affairs, which would be a counter to the premise that we only produce older programming.
Because there were a lot of popular programs then that still, surprisingly, have an audience.
Programs of a cultural variety, educational, and such. So, a wide variety of programs.
We never had news until maybe about 3 years ago. And we started off with some, what you call, daily news briefs. Now we have a fully established half-hour of news Monday to Friday. So we have grown in that sense. And we have a number of current affair programs that weren't being produced then.
Thank you for joining us.
Something as powerful as a media entity has to be built on something. And the foundation for that would be that older content.
We have reformatted some of those programs that you could say have not been dated.
And there is a landscape in Jamaica where we do have an aging population. People remember what JBC used to be, and we are still in the physical space where JBC was. So you have that bridge that forms the gap between the past and the current.
The content aired is centered on our mandate, which is basically to promote Jamaica's